So the first topic I'm going to talk about is that Bob Iger was talking about Marvel fatigue and canceling projects. And look, it always sucks to hear when film studios are canceling films. Like, I love movies, and Warner has been doing that lately, where they canceled Batgirl, that Scooby Doo movie. I know that Coyote versus Acme movie was canceled by Warner Brothers, and they were trying to shop that around, but it doesn't sound like any studio is willing to pick it up for the price tag. So it definitely sucks when you hear studios when they're saying they canceled film projects. But I do kind of understand more now though than I used to think, oh man, as a film fan, I hate when and I still hate when film projects get canceled. But I also think we live in a time right now where you gotta put out good to great movies. Like, people just won't accept terrible to okay movies anymore. And as a film fan, I want every movie to be good or great. And look, it is very hard to make a good to great movie. It is not easy. But I love what he said here because it is a tough thing to do when you have to do that. And it also makes me curious, like, what projects were canceled. I mean, I know there's been a bunch of Star Wars projects they've talked about that we haven't heard a lot about. There's been some MCU projects, Disney Plus wise, like animated stuff or other shows like the Iron Horse show that we haven't really heard much about. So I wonder, like, is it some Marvel projects? Maybe some ones we've been rumored, like the Nova character, or so I'm definitely I'm curious what the projects for that they've been quietly canceling. But he says here, you have to kill things you no longer believe in, and that's not easy in this business because you either gotta got started, you have some costs, or it's a relationship with either your employees or with the creative community. It's not an easy thing, but you got to make these tough calls. We've actually made these tough calls. We've not been that public about it, but we've killed a few projects that we just didn't feel were strong enough. And I totally understand that, especially with the MCU right now. Like, you gotta put out some good to great movies right now and the shows because at the end of the day, the Disney Plus shows haven't been a miss hit for most people. Even as an MCU fan, I can admit that. And the Star Wars stuff, with Disney Plus, even with the Disney Plus shows, have been hit with miss too. So, and on the film side of Star Wars, the sequel trilogy, was a very divisive trilogy. And then with MCU films, they've been, like a coin flip where it's been up and down, but with the quality of the movies. So I think I understand, for some franchises that you need to you need to make sure you put out strong movies, the quality of it. Because I know he's talking about this Spider-Man too, that, them putting out when Dave Chapek was in charge, who took over from Bob Iger, before Bob Iger came back, Kevin Feige lost some of the control of power at Marvel, and they felt like Byron feels like they diluted the brand by putting out so much. And look, he talks about fatigue later on, but I do think if you put out a bad stuff of a thing of a specific genre or a franchise, I mean, look at franchises, and you kind of see why some franchises go downhill at some point because the quality starts to decline. And I think for any genre, if you put out enough bad movies or mediocre movies in a genre, then people are gonna get tired of that franchise or that specific genre. So I mean, I haven't seen Man of Web, but it probably wasn't a good idea that Sony put out Man of Web because even though I don't, I wasn't really a fan of the whole idea of doing a Sony verse without Spider-Man. You could have made something great out of it, and you put out Man of Web, which is basically damaged Sony's versus brand right now because if Craven and Venom 3 don't do good, I don't think that universe is gonna last. So I see, sometimes, in hindsight, I kind of see, okay, you know what, I think at some points you need to kill certain projects if the quality you don't feel like the quality is there. And look, I also know studios, when they make movies, they go in the mindset, though, the movie's gonna be good to great. When you make a movie, you're going with the mindset that you're hoping you're gonna make a movie that's gonna be, loved, will entertain by the fans, and sometimes the execution doesn't land there when it comes to, and making movies are hard. But I do understand that you need to kill certain projects for a franchise or a brand right now, because I honestly think, like I said, I don't think movie fans will accept mediocre movies or just like terrible movies anymore. You gotta, and as a film fan myself, I hope this maybe gets studios to go like, okay, we need to make good to great movies. Like if you're gonna like make a movie, you want to feel like that. Okay, we really believe in this project. That so I definitely understand where Bob Iger is coming from, and this is what he was talking about with fatigue. A lot of people think it's audience fatigue. It's not audience fatigue. They want great films. If you build it great, they will come. There are countless examples of that. Some are ours, some are others. Oppenheimer is a perfect example of that. Just a fantastic film. Great example there too. And I point out Guardians 3 and Across the Spider Verse from last year. Those were critical financial hits. So people will come if you put out good to great movies. It's just you got to get back to putting out consistent quality wise. Focus is really important. We've reduced the output of Marvel, both of films they make and the number of TV shows. And that really becomes critical. But I feel good about the team. I feel good about the IP we're making. I talked a lot about the projects. We look years ahead, really, and not only do we look at the films you're making, look at every part of that process. Who the directors are, who's being cast, reading scripts. I personally watched films 3 to 5 times with the team and just create a culture of excellence and respect, which is really important with the creative community. Again, the track record speaks for itself. And he went on to specifically point Deadpool Wolverine as a sign that things are turning a corner for Marvel. He was talking about Deadpool Wolverine, how that will maybe change the tide of the MCU talk right now. And I do think that movie is really important. I don't think it's as important as Superman Legacy, but I do think it's important in the fact that MCU needs to get back on hitting quality over quantity. That means putting out consistently more quality films. And Deadpool 3 looks great, so I think that movie's going to turn out great. And I mean, you look at what Marvel's doing right now, where they're retooling the Daredevil show. The new Captain America, which I believe is called Brave New World now, is going through a sense of reshoots now. So I like the fact, even you can tell what the movies are making, that they are trying to get back to that, what made the Infinity Saga successful, which is quality over quantity. I've said this a bunch of times in past videos. You gotta start putting out consistently better quality like you used to with the MCU. To me, it's like it doesn't matter if you put out a lot of comic book movies, or you put out a lot of something, or if you pick a specific franchise, you just need to get back to putting out good to great movies of a franchise. MCU did a great job at that with the Infinity Saga. I'm talking about this. You go back to the Infinity Saga, and you were almost guaranteed they made a really good to great movie. I mean, yeah, you had your Thor 2 and Iron Man 2, like I mentioned in past videos. But for the most part, they were batting close to perfect there. Like most of the time, they made a really good to great movie. It was very rare when they had just an okay movie in the Infinity Saga. So I think what Bob Iger is saying, I agree with, and I love what he's saying, because to me that shows a good leader, somebody that realized, okay, we need to get back to the quality we used to be. Letting Kevin Feige be more involved with the projects again, not having put out so much, lest we feel like this is, that the quality is there for it to be put out. I think doing reshoots in a new Captain America movie again is a great example where I think you either do reshoots to see if you can get the project where you want it to be, or you just cancel the project now. Because I think with the MCU brand, you need to get people excited for the brand again. And the only way to do that is if you start putting out some good to great movies in a row. So I love what he said here. Hopefully, when we see it, with the upcoming projects coming out, hopefully we see the results that they all get back to a quality post. But I do think Deadpool and Wolverine, I love the fact he mentions Deadpool and Wolverine as a turning point, because I do think that's going to be where they can get that movie can come out to be great, and they can put out like two more good to great movies after that. Depending on if Deadpool and Wolverine ends up being really good to great. If they can do that in a row, I feel like the MCU can just bounce right back. I feel like for any franchise, just put out some good to great movies. Look at Prey. It revitalized the Predator franchise. And now they're talking about doing two Predator movies. We have the Prey sequel and then another Predator movie that's in development. So just, my thing is always focus on telling good to great stories. The next thing that I want to talk about is that the third movie in the Pearl and X franchise has a date now. It's coming out on July 5th this year. Now I'm really excited for this. I think Mia Goth is a fantastic actress based on Pearl. And the funny thing is about this franchise, I didn't even like X. Like, I think X is terrible. I know a lot of slasher horror fans love that movie. I think that movie is so overrated. Like, I really did not like that movie, and I still don't. And I'll be honest, I don't think Mia Goth gives, like, I think she's fine in X, but I'm not one of those people who watch them and like, oh man, that really showed her as an actress. Pearl, I loved. I think that to me is where I went like, okay, you know what? She's a great actress. And I'm excited to see the next movie in this franchise. Now, I hope it's more like Pearl and less like X, but I think it'll definitely be something different, because the way they talked about the movie is that it's not going to be like X, it's not going to be like Pearl, and I think that's one of the things I will say is that Pearl and X do feel like two different movies, so I think the third one would definitely have a different like style to it than the first two. But I'm definitely excited for this. This is, like I said, it's funny because I didn't like X, and it's just Pearl just definitely like made me a fan. Where I would say this though with Mia Goth, that's the only thing I've loved her in so far, because I watched the movie Infinity Pool and I think she was just kind of okay in that. But I definitely can't wait for this third movie. So the date is July 5th. Really excited for it. The next thing I want to talk about is the director of Dune and Dune Part 2 said he won't be showing any deleted scenes for Dune Part 2. And the reason is because he talked about how, those scenes are dead to him. The movie you put out in theaters, that is the movie. Like, everything you see in the movie in theaters, that's everything. And he talked about how painful it was to cut out like deleted scenes. And I know like the actor who played, he's gonna be playing the Hawk villain lead in a new Captain America movie, and he was in the Incredible Hulk movie where he first met his character. He was talking about how like his deleted, it sucks you won't see what character he played and what was deleted with his character from the movie, because he was apparently in the movie. I think I heard one other actor got the scene cut from Dune Part 2. So, I mean, it sucks you won't get to see these deleted scenes, because as a physical mean person, I love watching deleted scenes and see what they cut out. Because there's sometimes we watch deleted scenes, you're like, oh man, you wish they kept that in. And there's other times where I'm like, yeah, I totally understand why they cut that out. And look, with Dune Part 2, I don't think when I watched that movie, there was nothing in that movie that made it feel like, oh man, you're missing anything, in my opinion. But as a movie fan, it does suck. But I love what he said, though, about just like, all right, if the movie you get in theaters, that's the movie. Because I'm one of those people where I feel like lately with like directors, they seem to be on this thing lately where it's like, Zack Snyder is a really great example of this, where it's like, oh, we're gonna put out this movie in theaters, but we're gonna say there's gonna be a director's cut, like Napoleon, Rebel Moon. I'm just like, to me, the movie you see in theaters, that should be your final cut. The movie that's put in theaters, like the Lord of the Rings movies. I love the Lord of the Rings movies. They're one of my favorite choices all the time. I love the Senate cuts. But personally for me, even if you just watch the director cuts of Lord of the Rings, they're still fantastic movies. And that's the sign of a great movie, is that, to me, the cut in theaters should be the final movie. And if I come out and be loving it, then a director's cut or a Senate cut doesn't really matter to me. And I do think sometimes lately with directors, I feel like they're doing this like director's cut a little too much with movies lately. So I do love the fact that he's like, look, The movie you see in theaters, it's painful to cut out stuff, but that's the movie. That is the final cut. And I do think, as a movie fan, I always believed in that. And the fact that, look, when you get a director's cut, when a standard cut, it's nice. It's nice bonus stuff, in my opinion. It's cool to see. And sometimes they can improve a movie, obviously. Look, Batman v Superman and Alien 3 are two examples where I think the assembly cut and ultimate cut of those two movies are better. Not great, but better. And Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I loved, which was way better than than his director cut. I understand Joss Whedon came in and we shot a lot of that movie, but he's still credited as a director, so please don't get mad at me for that fact. But my point is that I love what he said, though, is that, look, the movie you saw with Dune Part 2, that is the final cut. And I think that should be the thing for all movies, honestly. The movie you see in theaters, in my opinion, that's the final cut, in my opinion, of a movie. And look, do I get interested when I see another cut of a movie? Like, yeah, if I hear that, they cut out, a half hour or more, that makes me definitely really curious, because maybe it could improve the movie. But I also do love the fact that, okay, you know what? There's not going to be a director's cut of Dune Part 2, that the movie we saw in theaters, and it's a movie to me that is a fantastic movie. And that's the thing for me. It's if I watch the movie in theaters and it's fantastic and I loved it, was really good, then a director's cut to me doesn't matter. But it does suck we won't get to see what the deleted scenes are, so. The next thing I want to talk about is Fu Panda 4 is looking like it's going to open to 50 at the box office. And I know the reviews came out for it. Well, it's getting good reviews, so I'm glad to hear that, because I'm really excited for Fu Panda 4. I love the first two movies, and I think the budget for this one was only over 80, so it was a low budget movie. It was below 100. And I think you're going to see definitely a lot of kids going to see Fu Panda 4, and it's just nice to hear with Dune Part 2 and Fu Panda 4 coming out with the two totally demographics. I think it's just great to see people going to the movies right now. I've said this in my past videos, I said on Facebook, March, in my opinion, was when the movie year starts in 2024. Because you have Fu Panda 4 coming up, you got Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. I think, to me, this month is exciting because you have some movies that people are actually excited about finally this year. And I think Fu Panda 4, I'm glad to hear the good response. That makes me more excited. I'm a Fu Panda, a recent Fu Panda fan. Because I've been through 3 movies last year. And I highly recommend, go check out the first 3 movies. But I can't wait for Fu Panda 4. I'm a huge fan of the franchise. And I'm excited to see how this new movie is going to be. But I'm glad to see that it sounds like it's going to have a good opening. And it's good to see that this movie was also made for a lower budget. So, with the good word of mouth, I could definitely see this movie making, some good money at the box office, especially with kids too, because there's not movies out there for kids right now. So I think that'll definitely get the kid audience. I think it'll get the audience that really love those first 3 Fu Panda movies, because look, those movies are, they're beloved movies, and they did make a lot of money, those first 3 movies. So that's all the movie topics today. Until next time, movie fans.